Rugby has an unquestionable, defined, and relevant culture that represents important values for rugby players, coaches, and spectators alike. The culture of rugby is spread across many nations and creates a worldwide community through its growth and development as a culture. Now, as we dive into the topic of rugby, we might ask ourselves this question: where did rugby originate? Well, rugby was first developed in Rugby, England, by a boy named William Webb Ellis that first picked up a football and began to run across the school field with the ball in hand in 1823. This new game developed rules that made it different from European football. Players could carry the ball, they could only pass the ball backwards, and full contact was allowed. As the game grew in popularity, from his school to his town and surrounding towns, it consequentially grew in popularity worldwide.
What's he doing?
Don't worry, Johnny. That'll never take off.
Although rugby resembles many aspects of that of a material culture, such as tangible kits, balls, and players involved in the game, the culture of rugby itself very much represents that of a non-material culture. This is mainly due to the values and customs of rugby, such as camaraderie, respect, commitment, and sportsmanship. These values are the building blocks that rugby was built on and continue to maintain a relevance in the sport. Respect is an extremely prominent theme in the culture of rugby. This helps to create its identity as a culture. Each team has a relationship with one another, opponents can be friends off the field, and hatred amongst players is uncommon. This is something that is unprecedented in the world of sports. Rugby has a well-known reputation for having respect amongst players and teams. Rugby culture was mainly diffused through the influence of the British Empire. We can see that the passion for rugby is extremely strong in previous British colonies. Countries like New Zealand and Australia developed their own rugby culture as a result of British influence. New Zealand specifically adapted rugby to include pieces of their own local culture, performing a traditional Maori haka before the kickoff. Rugby culture strongly resembles local culture because it is a tight-knit community that commonly comes together to interact. This happens at the Rugby World Cup, the Olympics, or other tournaments around the world. However, rugby is a global community that shares similar experiences, customs, and traits. The fact that the participants of rugby culture can interact with fellow members anywhere in the world is what makes this culture different from any other, and qualify it as a local culture despite its global capacity. Distance decay can be defined as a phenomenon observed between two locations or ethnic groups. The further apart the two locations are, the less likely they are to interact with each other. If we were to put this term into the perspective of rugby, England and Samoa are very far apart from each other. However, both are very well-respected rugby nations and often interact in tournaments. Despite their geographical difference, they could find a similarity with one another. This is common in rugby because there is a sense of community no matter where you are in the world. Time-space compression is very relevant in rugby culture. This theory only strengthens rugby's presence as a culture. As the popularity of rugby culture grows around the world, the chance of coming across other rugby players increases. This spreads the influence of rugby culture around the world and diffuses it from place to place. Rugby culture sets an example for other cultures. The participants in rugby culture make this part of rugby possible by closely following the values and traits associated with rugby. There's a very popular saying in rugby that goes, "Football is a gentleman's game played by hooligans. Rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen." This establishes the firm set of values that are represented in rugby culture and outlines the pride and respect required to play rugby.
But I'm the referee on this field, not you. Stick to your job and I will do mine. If I hear you shouting for anything again, I'm going to be penalising you. This is not soccer. Is that clear? Back you go and get on with the game.
Rugby's culture strongly represents the values and customs of English culture. We can trace these values all the way back to rugby's creation. These customs are still relevant in the game today and are practiced by players around the world.
Gentlemen, this is not the classroom. There is no formula, and there is no curriculum.
We are here to express ourselves and to enjoy ourselves, and we do so together as a team.
And we will fight and strain every sinew in our body, but we do so like men, with honor and courage. And you will put the team first, but you will find a way to make your mark and do your duty. You must have courage and commitment and character. Should responsibility make you timid?
No!
And should discipline clip your wings?
No!
So let's go!
Yeah!